Simon Squibb, you might have heard of him.
Excuse me, do you have a dream?
He talks about how he used to be homeless, now he's a multi-millionaire.
At 15, I was homeless, and now I'm a multi-millionaire. I built a company and sold it, and put 50 million in the bank.
Apparently, I mean, there's no evidence for this at all, but trust me, bro, he goes around the streets telling people two things. Number one, to quit their job on the spot. He even pays them. He'll be like, here's 50 quid, quit your job now.
Deal? There's the cash. Let's go. So now we need to ring your boss and quit.
Okay, cool. And he also tells people never to buy a property. He says that property investment is a scam, and he says that you're much better renting where you live and don't ever own a house at all. We're going to break down his arguments and his points, and then I'm going to combat them because, quite frankly, I'm pretty tired of hearing him over and over and over again talk about how terrible property investment is when it's clearly one of the best investments on the planet.
Excuse me, do you have a dream? Have you got a dream?
I do have a dream, actually.
Simon Squibb tells all of his followers not to buy a house, instead to build a brand. Everybody should be famous. Everybody should be an influencer like Simon Squibb.
Dream, yeah. Used to become a doctor.
A doctor?
Yeah.
I mean, this is my tip. I think everybody should become a personal brand. So what have you got a website, personal website?
No, I'm still studying.
Oh, it's perfect time. So you should set up your own website. I partner with GoDaddy, so I can help you get a website up and running.
What in the Simon Slippery Squibb are you going on about? He also tells people that renting is far superior to owning because you have the flexibility. If something breaks, the landlord can fix it, and renting is just a much better business model.
People are stupid when they say it's mortgage versus rent. I don't want to be stuck in one location because I own a house. I would rather rent, and if the landlord lifts the rent, move somewhere else.
We should start enforcing rules like you can only own one home. Buy-to-let should be banned.
If renting is far superior to buying, and renting is the way forward, but people shouldn't have more than one home and it should be illegal to rent out houses, then who on earth are these renters gonna rent from? He also tries to put people off buying houses and becoming property investors by saying that real wealthy people don't buy properties.
I hear so often people talk about, buy a house, rent it out, take that money, buy another house, rent it out, and that's kind of the last 30 years seems to be the way everyone thinks is to make money, but in reality, most people that have serious wealth, that's not how they made it.
In fact, most of the wealth in the UK is stored in property. If you go on the Sunday Times rich list, you can see that the 100 wealthiest people in Britain, 25% of them have got property listed as their primary source of wealth. Even companies that you don't think of as property companies, like McDonald's, that are a food business, they actually make the vast majority of their money from what? From property.
Property business is a scam.
And ultimately, eventually getting into real estate. I'm not saying that property doesn't have a place in the accumulation of wealth. What I'm saying, you can wait.
And buy a house and rent it out? Do you think I'm an idiot? I've got a brain. I'm going to buy a house and change the lock on the front door and fix the kitchen and call myself a businessman? F*** off.
Which one is it? Is it property is unethical and we should never do it? Or is it that it's a bad business? Or is it that we should do it, but later, once we become wealthy first? It wouldn't surprise me if when Simon was telling you, don't buy property, if actually behind the scenes, he was buying property and building up his own property portfolio.
This 5-bedroom house, actually I bought it as a business.
I'm working on a project in England at the moment where we're trying to redevelop a high street into accommodation.
I see it a lot, normally by mainstream newspapers saying, don't buy property. And who are the mainstream newspapers owned by? People that are rich and investing in property.
So the property market is going to crash. It's not just going to crash and bring values down. It could actually bring society down.
He said this 18 months ago. He said property prices are about to crash. He captioned it, housing will crash. However, it's been 18 months now. What's happened? Properties have gone up.
You got me.
He didn't say, in my opinion, houses are about to crash. He said,
Studied this subject so deeply.
so there may be people that were about to buy a house, pulled out because of Simon's video, and have now lost money. Now it's in the bank, it's shrunken because of inflation, and the flip or the deal that they were gonna do, they've lost the money because of it. 80% of people that get into business fail within the first 5 years. But in property, if you buy a house, chances are, even if you buy a house blindfolded and just sit on it, probably going to make money over time. Another big argument that he says is he says that houses are a bad investment because he says, look, gold has done better over the last 35 years.
Gold went up more since 1970 than property. Gold doesn't require you to change the windows and fix the gutter.
Firstly, that's kind of subjective. Generally speaking, house prices and gold have kind of gone up hand to hand similarly, but gold doesn't pay you any rent. Also, you can't use debt against gold. But now the argument is, don't buy property, what? Because gold is better? Okay. If that's the case, maybe you should be doing videos about why you think gold is really good, not why people should not buy properties. He says here, I've got a LinkedIn post from him literally just 1 month ago saying, do not in capital letters, buy a house. People always get upset when I say this, but my house has doubled in value since 1990. Great, so your house is worth a bit more. But how much have you spent maintaining it? I don't think he believes this. Firstly, if you bought an average house in 1990, that was 34 years ago, the average house in the UK in 1990 was £57,000. Now the average house is £300,000. So if you bought an average house in 1990, it wouldn't have doubled in value. House prices tend to double in value in the UK every 10 years. So when he says it's doubled since 1990, that just wouldn't be possible. That would be appalling if it had only doubled. If you're a landlord and you buy a house to rent out, you know that maintenance is a business expense. If it's a commercial property, then usually that's on a fully repairing and insuring lease, and the tenants are responsible for the maintenance. If you live in the property, sure, then you have to maintain it yourself, but then you've got massive other advantages like security, like when you spend money maintaining a house, you're also potentially adding the value of the house. If this was just Simon's personal opinion, I wouldn't have a problem with that. It's a free country, but the difference is Simon is going up to people in the street that are working their jobs, telling them to quit their job and asking them, what's your dream instead?
What is your dream?
To be an artist.
Here's £50. So I'd like to start right away your career as an artist, please.
Please, I'm sorry.
I want to buy your artwork.
And when they respond and say, well, my dream is to become a property investor, he slams them, makes them feel stupid, and tells them to find another dream.
What's your dream? Do you have a dream?
My dream to one day invest in property.
Anything else apart from property? I'm not a fan of property. I just want
Not a
to.
fan of property?
No, I think it's a scam. Do something where you can build a brand.
Yeah.
Build value.
Yeah.
Like property. Name me a property company with a good brand.
Yeah, I know.
They don't
There
exist.
isn't one, is there?
Yeah, and that's where the real value
Yeah.
is. Yeah?
Property investors want to make money, and the way to make money in business is to buy rundown houses cheap and then to renovate them. That's how you make money in the property business.
Property business is a scam.
If you're buying rundown properties and refurbishing them, you're bringing more supply to the market. You say property buy-to-let isn't even a business. Of course it's a business. Your house is your product and your tenant is your customer. You talk about how it should be illegal to own more than one house. What are we gonna do? Let the government just own all the properties? Whenever the government take over all the properties and ban buy-to-let, you know what happens? Devastation. Communism ruins everything it touches. And despite you calling yourself a capitalist, for some weird reason, when it comes to property, you become a total communist.
And everybody who wants to get into the buy-to-let business is, in my opinion, getting into the fuck up the world business.
Your audience and your following deserve an explanation for your ridiculous, absurd, and terrible misleading and false advice around the property market.